Hi, welcome, Stephen.
Hey there, Lisa. This is Steve Bell, and welcome to another session of Ask the Expert. We're going to be covering advanced glide records today. We have a handful of topics, which will take up the hour, and hopefully we'll have enough time at the end of this to tackle a pervasive problem with not only encoded queries, but just queries in general, which is known as the order of precedence issue. And there are ways of overcoming that. And if I got time, I'll cover that. But right now, I'm going to focus on three different topics. And they are pretty much something that requires a little more advanced scripting. So I'll just warn you right now, if you're a beginner at this stuff, some of this may not make all that much sense. And I would advise you to go through the beginner and intermediate topics that we've covered. And better yet, if you are new to this, go through ServiceNow scripting class. All right, let's get rolling here. So this is me. I'm Steve Bell. I work for Accenture. I am a ServiceNow MVP, third year in a row. And I'm author of actually almost 170 articles now and more than around 20 videos. So I need to update this slide. I'm a certified instructor and I'm certified in several different topics. Okay, so what are we going to be covering in this session? First one is going to be talking about the GlideRecord location pointer. You can do some pretty spectacular things with this. It is a little known piece of functionality, which I hope to cover thoroughly in this session. And I'll be walking you through an example and building off of that example and what this is actually good for. This thing is a real lifesaver sometimes in performance. So glide records can be really stinky on performance depending on how much information you're pulling in and what you're trying to do with them. So the location pointer allows you to move around inside of a glide record after you've retrieved it. The next thing, I don't know why it took it away, encoded queries. We're going to go over some of the more advanced components of encoded queries. I'm not going to teach you encoded queries, but I'm going to teach you some more advanced concepts surrounding encoded queries, what they can and cannot do, and some of the more interesting aspects of them. And then finally, we're going to actually take a look at the GlideRecord object and what's actually inside of it. And yes, you can examine a GlideRecord object and what it brings back. Of course, GlideRecord objects are unusual. They're a Java object that's being transliterated into JavaScript and then dropped into the computer memory. And it's really interesting what is there out of the box versus what is there from the table. Because remember, a GlideRecord object is oriented to whatever table you feed it. So what actually is inside of the GlideRecord object is of great interest. And you can actually dump the whole object and take a look at it. And we'll be doing that. Then finally, if we got time, we're going to be talking about order of precedence. And this is a problem that a lot of people don't even realize exists. And it's something that is not addressed enough. And I get questions on it all the time. They just don't know what it's necessarily called. So this is the difficulty of when particular where clauses inside of the glide record will execute. And it is a difficult thing to predict normally unless you know exactly how glide records function and then how to orient a glide record so it will do what you need it to do. And if I've got time, I'll cover this now. If not, I'll do it in a later Ask the Expert session. If you have any questions, please funnel those to online and Lisa will bring them to my attention. Okay, so the live presentation. So we're going to start with our basic, if you want to call it basic, developer or personal instance. So all these examples can be done on the personal instance. That's how I've oriented things so that you can teach yourself. You can emulate what I'm doing online. We will be posting out the code snippets and everything else out that I do in the classroom here, and showing you blow by blow exactly how things fit together. I'm going to start out inside of scripts background because normally when you're playing with stuff like this, it's a good place to play. Think of it as a temporary sandbox. As our example grows during the session, I'll move to fixed scripts. I usually do this when I get beyond just about 8 or 9 lines of code. The fixed scripts give you a better place to test. In essence, it also has line numbers where you're typing in your code where scripts background won't. And I'll show and stress the two. I've used them in previous sessions, so just letting you know how I'm going to go about presenting things. And then finally, the fixed scripts gives you versioning, and then an extra bonus is that fixed scripts go into an update set. So whatever update set you're pointed to, that is where the code will end up, or the script will end up. So nice things about fixed scripts. I particularly like the versioning part. And then also fixed scripts allow you to run foreground or background, where scripts background doesn't let you do that. All right, so we're going to go to scripts background first. Normally, it isn't available like this. You have to raise your self to security admin by going to elevate roles and go to security admin and say, okay, that's how it is out of the box. I've got it rigged so that it shows up my system definition without having to do this. So this is scripts background. So the first thing on GlideRecord pointers, we're going to be looking at just pulling the location of a particular pointer. And you can get a location, you can save a location, you can set a location, you can restore. We're going to be taking this one little bit at a time. We're going to be examining the record as it comes in. And what's interesting is GlideRecords are not enumerated. In other words, I can't for loop. You can't for loop. Using the normal I equals 0 to I is less than the length of the glide record, I++ kind of stuff. This does not work. You can't use this kind of for loop. It will not work. However, under the hood, and if I could spell today, it does have the enumeration there. Now this is really too bad because I would like to have the for looping, and you can always, in previous sessions I've talked about converting a glide record into a object array, but here we're going to be actually using the glide record itself. The pointer actually points to the line number, and that's the reason. So internal pointer just a record number. Okay. So
I've got 2 questions. First one, sure. Jay says, hi, I want to give users to approve reject option in RIM. I don't know, RIM. Can you share script, any suggestion? And so Joshua on the community asks, I have noticed that some parts of our code have very long encoded queries. Is there a better way of handling things? For example, a task where, X ampersand Y ampersand Z ampersand, there was something pretty long.
I'll take a look at both of those. I won't be answering those directly in the session because I want to cover the 3 topics I've got. But both of those questions, I'll take a look at them and see if I can answer them.
All right, great. Thank you.
Sure. Okay, so let's say we got incidents. Okay, so normal glide record. Now, Let's play around with this a little bit. In the previous sessions, I talked about adding in, think like add active query. We'll do that, and we'll set the limit. Kind of set this thing up a little bit, and then we'll do an order by number field, and okay. So here's our our query. It'll bring back 10 records, arbitrary. They're ordered by number ascending, so it'll be 1 through whatever 10, and we're going to be playing around with this. So let's print off those 10 records, but we're going to pick one out of the list. We're going to pick number 5, let's say. So the normal while, I can do number 3 too. We'll do just something out of the center of stuff here. So incidents.next. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say I want to grab a particular one. How would I go about doing that? Well, this is where the get location really is useful. Now, when I should say before the dot next, I can't type worth the darn today. You don't have a pointer. However, a pointer to so here's the interesting part about this. The pointer is actually sent to the beginning. So before you actually next, there is an internal pointer that we're going to be referencing, and you can set that location later and then restore to it. So you actually restore to the 0th record and start over. So there's some interesting stuff goes on underneath the hood concerning the pointer. It's not quite a true enumeration in that regard, because in enumeration you start with the 0th element and then move forward. In this one, it's got something goofy under the hood that you can reset to a before anything happens pointer and actually start nexting through everything again. But let's continue with the example here. So I'm going to say if, and I can't spell worth the darn today. Get location. All right, so this gets the current location, which is what? A number. So let's take a look at record number 5. Now, it's got something really goofy going on with the way it does the enumeration. So we'll get into that, but let's just take this on face value right at the moment. So if it's record number 5, we want to print off a message that we've got something special going on, which is we found record number 5. And tell you what, I'll print it off as well. And we'll also print off the record, the actual number it thinks it found. I'll do a little bit of variable replacement kind of stuff here. So you can see we're already getting into something just a little more complex. Normally, I will set this up, like I said, and after this example, I'll set it up inside of a fixed script. All right. So there you go. Now, I'm going to go ahead and print off all the other records, but right in the middle of it, we're going to get, we found record number 5. So up here, I'm going to do a gs.info. And I'll say incident number poof. And what we'll do is we'll put the actual record number in at the beginning here. And then the incident number will go right here. And so there we go. And I'll grab this. that here, and grab this and put that here, and then close and semicolon. Make sure everything looks good. I don't see any bugs in my code. Now, in scripts background, I'm in Google Chrome, which doesn't have a problem usually, but I've had trouble in Firefox where after I run this and then back arrow, I lose it. So I'm going to copy this out and paste it into my favorite Notepad++ editor. And make sure I keep a copy around. And there we go. So there's my copy, and that way I don't lose it. And let's let her rip. Okay, everything should be good. And go. I'm running in London right now, by the way. And there you go. So, okay, notice it started with record number 0. Apparently I don't have a record 1 or a record 3 through 15. Second one and third one, and these are all in order. Notice that the 6th record is number 5 because we're 0 based. And then the 9th record down at the bottom. So 10 records. And since we grabbed the location and said it equals 5, we got record number 5. And we went ahead and handled it specially. So this way you can actually pick records out based on what record number they are. Not that, it's a practical example, but it gives you an idea of what can be done with a glide record and some of the pointer stuff. So we're going to now get into a little bit deeper work. So now we got a nice little script here. This is actually a little more than I usually work with inside of scripts background. So we're going to move to a fixed script. Copied it. And someday it'll come back. Hello. There we go. All right. So this will be advanced GlideRecords. And paste. And let's expand it out so we got everything, and I'll blow it ever so slightly and push this aside. All right, so here's our script we were just playing with. This is where fixed scripts really shines. You can start, when you save, this actually saves a version of this thing, and then each additional version, you never lose the previous version ever. So it's really nice. Alrighty then, let's continue with our example. So I want to reset the pointer, and you can do that. I have a set pointer that can be fired, but I'm not going to do that just yet. I'm going to reset the pointer and while through it all a second time. So right first, I'm going to do a gs.info and put some sort of line separator here. And then, sorry, I'm having allergies issues today. Next, we're going to do an incidents.restore location. And this is all that really needs to be done to reset the pointer to 0. Notice we haven't set a location anywhere, but the default throws us back to the first -1 pointer. And that -1 pointer is actually the thing I was talking about, where it points to nothing. So let's see what happens when we do this. We're going to bring this back down here. And notice that we'll be nexting, and we're going to see what happens when this actually occurs. So notice it's all the same loop. And if you ever try to next beyond the end of the loop, like if I were to put an incidents.next, what would happen here? Well, kaboom, because this returns a false, and this doesn't do anything. I mean, it's beyond the end, so it's going to return a false again, and basically it doesn't like that, so it doesn't really do anything. It just returns a false that ends up doing nothing. But you get the idea. It's at the end. It can't next. It can't move forward. the pointer can't be progressed, and you're at the end of the actual glide record. Well, I want to reset the glide record so I can use it again, maybe further down in my code for some reason. So this is the actual first practical thing that I'm introducing here that will give you the ability to restore to a previous location. So let's save and go ahead and run it. And poof, and there we go. So let me move up a little bit here. You can see it reset back to the 0, actually -1, and it reset back to the beginning. And so the first next actually pops then with the first record. So pretty cool. And that allows us to actually go back to a particular location. Well, you can actually play around with this a little bit. You can save a location. You can set a location. So we restored a location. Let's talk about setting a location. So back to our example. Now I can play a game. I can say incidents.setLocation and specify a number. So what happens if I do that? You know, kind of interesting. Let's look at this for a moment and see what we really want to do here. This is a number that will go back, and we can either restore to this location or we can leave it. Now you have to restore to it to get it to go back to it, and then it's kind of a placeholder, if you will. It's a bookmark, and this restore location sends you to that last bookmark. So as a developer, you've got to keep track of what's happening and why. So this should start with record number 5 and go 5, 6, 7, and 8, and 9, right? So let's watch it. So I'm going to save. And run. And proceed. Poof. Wait a minute, something didn't happen right. So this is one of the things that it doesn't wake up to the correct value right away. So I found that this is an interesting bug or problem inside of ServiceNow. And even though you set the location, for whatever reason, the glide record doesn't really wake up to what you're doing unless you do certain things. So there's some strange stuff goes on underneath the hood with the pointers themselves and how they actually function. So, poof. So let's talk about a little bit about the save location component. So what we do is, instead of this, so restore only works on the last save. So even though you do a set location, it is not doing anything. So let's take this out. Well, I'm going to set location, I'm going to save location, and I'm going to restore. So this should do the work. Let's see what happens. There you go. Okay, so there's another odd thing. So it doesn't wake up unless you do save. So you can set the pointer, but as far as the last saved location, until you save, it loses its brain. It doesn't know about the set location. All right, so cleared that little mystery up. The next mystery you got sitting there is, hey, this is weird. When I did the set location, I set it on record number 5, but it started with record number 6. Well, this is a little idiosyncrasy in the code. Record number that you save to needs to be -1 from where you really want to start. Okay, so record number you want to start from needs to be -1 from your save. And remember, you can go all the way back to 0. If you want to start at 0, it's -1. It's the actual record number you want to start from. So let me demonstrate. So let's go back down here. I'm going to create a variable. And I can say my save location is 1. So this will always be -1 from where you want to start. So this is my maintainable, which I can't apparently spell, maintainable location. You know, something that some maintenance coder will come along and actually see. And this is the adjustment to the pointer to get it to start where it's supposed to, which is record number 5. So this idiosyncrasy is idiosyncrasy number 2 on the pointers. Run. Proceed. And poof. And there you go. So we've covered restore, save, and set, and get. And it allows you to move around wherever you want to. I could do strange, weird things. Once we get inside number 5 here, I can then jump to something. So I can say incidents.set location, and then set it to 8 from 5, and then incidents.save location, and then incidents.restore location. And this gets really interesting then. This is how I can jump around. And there's ways of making this smoother that I've come up with, but I challenge you to mess around with it a little bit. So this way I can do a kind of internal go-to and jump inside of the code. This is also how I can emulate a on-the-fly +2 or +3 iteration through the numbers. So in a for loop, you can say I want to skip and do only every 3rd record or every 2nd record. You can do the same thing here. You could set up a module and actually then check to see what it is. So you get the location and return it and examine it. Okay, for those of you who don't know what module is, if you go to JavaScript, and arithmetic operators, I love MDN. Let's blow this up a little bit. It allows you to actually test using the % exactly what number you're working with. So in this particular case, and I'm not going to get deep into this, I can say if %2, so if this comes out to a particular value, the expected output should be 0. So you can say if this comes out as a some factor of 2, then we can print this out. And let's go ahead and do that. I'm not going to, let's see here, set location based on get location. I don't care about any of this stuff, but this is how you can then jump. Actually, we'd be doing this. So first one, second one, third one, we can do continues to keep the thing moving. But what you really want to do is you want to see if you can jump. So if it's not the first one, I haven't set this up for this session, so I'm thinking it through. But this gives you an idea of what can actually be done. You can do the get location, do a modulus on it, and actually jump to the next record. So if this is not equal to 0, then you can jump to the next record by doing a .next, or by getting the current and adding 1 to it and jumping to that. But it gives you an idea of how you can actually skip records throughout. You can set this up to 3 or 4 or 5. But without this get location, you wouldn't know where you were. And it gives you what the enumeration is currently inside of the incidents, or inside your glide record, I should say. So, okay. That's that. Let's move on to the next topic. So there's a lot of flexibility with this, and I'll probably sit down and I'll figure it out for y'all and publish this out a little bit later. It would make a nice addendum to the classroom I'm doing right now. So, okay. All right, so next example we're going to get into is a little more advanced code in the encoded query side. So I'm going to go over a little bit on encoded queries first, on what they actually are. So let's do a update on this guy and get out of here. All right, let's create a brand new fixed script. New. And we'll call it advanced encoded query. Now, a couple things here. So it's a good idea to learn the structure of an encoded query and what certain things mean. The little caret or hat, as some people call it, is a SQL AND. The OR is an AND OR. So this is an OR. Equals, not equals. And you can string these together. You can also do a really cool thing called a new query. Right buttons today. This allows you to start a brand new query in the encoded query, so you can actually have 2 queries chained one right after the other. There is a thing called related list query. I won't be getting into that deep. Well, I might. We'll see if I got the time here. So you can do a related list query. You can also mess around with an end related list query. So these are chained together usually. So you can start one and end one. Related list queries are interesting. I might just do a different session on them. You can specify JavaScript that you want to run. This, by the way, is an amazingly wonderful animal because it allows you to actually code in JavaScript in the encoded query and accomplish certain tasks that way, including calling out the script includes if you want to get crazy. Please don't do that. It makes it very difficult to maintain. Another one that I'll get into is you can do order by, obviously. Almost anything you can think of that is inside of a list view query breadcrumb. Between all these, we've covered in previous sessions. Actually, I've got a couple of sessions that I haven't done anything with yet. Not like, and so on. Don't use double or single quotes. To surround your strings. Okay, these are all the basics. A lot of people don't know about some of this interesting stuff right here. And it's very rare you'll actually see that in a list view breadcrumb. Actually, I've never seen the end related list query stuff, but I have seen NQs out there. There's some cool things like this that we can get into. I've got, unfortunately, limited time for this session, so let's keep moving. All right, so expand this puppy out. So I'm going to go back to my old friend, the incident record, and we're going to copy that information in. So here's my previous one. I'm going to start adding things to this. I'm going to set the limit to 5 for the purposes of this. Keep the active query. Still order by number, but I'm going to start adding some things in. So first off, shortcut a little bit here. So we'll do an add query category, and we'll do a like. And we'll say anything with inquiry in it. And let's do another one here. I'm going to do 3. Stop that. Be nice. All right. So priority and which going to be the stuff I want. So I'm going to semicolon and I'm going to copy this. And then change this to state and urgency. Okay, so here's my query. It's a little more complex. The idea would be to turn this into a encoded query. Do it by rolling our own. So you could go out and you could create this thing somewhat out in an encoded query by going to the list view and copying it out of there, right? The idea here is to show you how it can be done by rolling your own. All right, so let's take a look at it. So I'm going to print it off, GSinfo. In a day, info, and our number again. That'd be enough. I think category, I'll just print off number and category, and we'll leave it at that, comma. So incident. In a previous one, I told you the get value is the preferred method because it's 16% faster than a toStringing by doing a direct assignment. This is blindingly fast in comparison. So this is really what you want to do. And if you remember, the last one I did a direct value. This one, I'm going to start introducing the speedier way of doing stuff. There we go. So I got everything here. This should be a whole bunch that are like inquiry, probably are inquiry. So let's go ahead and save this and run it. Must not have anything out there listed as inquiry for category. Interesting. All right, I thought I did. My bad. Let's take a look at all of them and see what their categories are. See, it allows me this way, I can just comment it out and I get back a whole bunch, right? Or whatever's sitting there. I probably got a whole bunch of closed ones. This is a problem. Take out the active query. Okay, I got software, I got 2 inquiries, but they're probably closed. So they're inactives. So let's remove the inactive and save and run again. I need a working query before I do anything more. Okay, I got something weird going on here. It must be that these other constraints. Spell category wrong? C-A-T-E? Nope. Something very strange going on because these are active. Poof. Oh, we'll leave it at this. Good enough for government work. For whatever reason, when I inquiry, I can't spell, and that's the problem. I knew I'd spelled it wrong. Inquiry, gah. All right, so there. It was throwing it out because it says, I'm sorry, there's nothing like that. All right, so now if I run, I should be good. Helps to get the string right, you know? There we go. So let's see, I got 3 active, 5 active. Good. All right, moving on. So how do we transliterate this into a encoded query command? I can actually take all of these where clauses and compress them down into a single where clause. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to copy this whole thing, jump it down here, and now we're going to rebuild it. So first off, a good practice is to create a variable to contain this stuff. So the first thing is going to be category. And here's the interesting part about this. With encoded queries, first off, you don't have to do an and at the beginning. It's just a straight off. And there is no string, so no double quotes or anything like that. So inquiry. And this actually then could be this. I can say add encoded, and yes, you can mix and match. Help me, somebody, please. All right, and I'm going to put a semicolon up here. And yes, you can mix and match in here. So now I've got this is of this. So that's pretty nice. Let's go ahead and save. And run, and we should get 2 listings. Probably should have taken them and shown them differently. But you can see we get the same thing. So the encoded query is functioning the way it's supposed to. Let's go ahead and put it in here. Break. All right, next thing. I'm going to add in priority, state, and urgency. Okay, well, these are all ands. So I'm going to do and priority equals, remember the equals is straight equals, and state equals 1, and urgency equals 1. Now I've just rolled my own, and I didn't need to go and actually run a list view. You could probably go test this, concept in a list view. Now I've just reduced this down. This right here is not very maintainable. So I'm going to do a little bit of whacking on it to make it a little bit more maintainable. And also give me the capability to take things out of it. Well, and just do this. So I can plus it and break it apart and just do line by line. There you go. So now I can maintain this. Oops, I got the plus in the wrong place. I'll fix that. All right, so I can maintain this a little better. And if I need to, I can take pieces out of it. So it's relatively easy to edit this and get rid of certain things that I don't want it to do. Careful doing this. It's a bad idea. Even though that works, it may not be interpreted correctly because of the comment in the middle. It should be fine, and it should work just fine, and you should be able to get away with it. But I don't recommend it, especially for maintenance type stuff, people coming along later. It's better just to blow it away. There you go. So it's a little bit smoother, easier to read, so on. I like encoded queries a lot for the flexibility it gives me. And if you do it right, it's maintainable. Ta-da. So we got our nice 5 again down here. All right, so let's get a little more sophisticated than that. So we can actually get in and start adding things to our query. So I'm going to leave this up here, but I'm going to start expanding on things a little bit. I'm going to throw in another condition here. I'm going to OR the state to include 2s. Well, OR, remember, is OR. So I have OR state equals 2. Not as nice maintainability on this one. I also would like to get all urgencies that are 1, 2, and 3. Again, maintainability is suffering just a little bit right here. If you have a maintenance coder coming in, they may not understand this. This is an implied or. I'm wanting 1 or 2 or 3. So you could pretty much do the same thing with state up here, even though there's only 2 of them, but I wanted to show the or statement. So this is priority equals 1, and state is 1 or 2, and urgency is 1 or 2 or 3. And let's see what we get. I'm not printing all this stuff off. Probably should start throwing the urgencies and stuff in there. Well, it looks like we got the same ones. Let's take a look. So we're going to add into this my priority and my state, and my urgency. And I'm running out of time, and I don't know if I'm going to get to my 4th topic or 3rd topic here.
We can run over a little bit if you'd like.
Okay,
We'll
see.
You.
I'm trying to get to everything here and make sure that everyone sees the various examples. So this is going to be priority, state, urgency, and rid of the extra comma. So I have 5 and 5. And run. Proceed. Poof. So priority, state, and urgency. So these are well within my parameter list. I didn't have any 1, 2s, or 3s, at least not obviously. And what really needs to be done is I probably need to expand the list I'm printing off. So I can do that as well. I can jump it up to 10. Let's see what that comes up. Meanwhile, I'm going to comment this out because we really don't care about that list anymore. And I don't know what it thinks it's doing there. And let's jump this up to 10 to give us a better record set that we can look at. Poof. Not much better. So you can see we can filter things out. I can tell it I don't want 1s. That's easy enough. So I don't want any priorities of 1. So here's the thing I told you not to do, but I want to demo that it can work. So I told it any priorities, and you get the idea. So pretty cool what you can do with the encoded queries. You can get quite sophisticated with the mix and match stuff. You aren't limited to doing one encoded query and nothing else. You can mix and match. You can have extra statements in there. It's usually a good practice if you're going to do encoded query to do everything as encoded. It compresses down what you're dealing with inside of the glide record itself, and it makes this the thing you're maintaining for the where clause. So there's some good best practices right here, and I use encoded queries pretty heavily these days. I've gotten, so if I go over one or two different where clause components, I usually jump to an encoded query as a much cleaner method for maintenance. Okay, so that's the encoded query. Let me go ahead and stop that. Got mystery button pushes going on with my mouse these days. All right, so that's encoded query. I have a little bit of time here to talk about dumping a actual object. So there's some crazy things you can do with the GlideRecord object, and there are tables, and let's go ahead and do a little bit of the lecture piece here again. So fix script. Again, I'll post these scripts out as importable XMLs, and you can bring them into your fixed scripts and start playing with them on your personal instance. All right, so let's do a new fixed script, and we'll call this one the GlideRecord record analysis. All right. So again, we're going to play with our little incident again. So poof. Now, what I want to cover is a couple things. First one is, what exactly is a glide record? So its definition is that it goes out and it pulls in a designated set of records from a specified table. So retrieve a set of records from a specified table. So this is essentially a SQL query by definition. This doesn't look like one. All right. There are a couple of interesting things around this. First off, structure of the table from someplace. So that incident table structure is actually adjusted for inside the glide record. When it goes out and it retrieves the information, it adjusts itself by the glide or by the table definition to bring back the table information in the right named fields and be able to bring them back to you. Remember, every glide record is always a select asterisk, so it's bringing back everything for you. But it has to do the internal adjustment under the hood. It's getting this information from the sys dictionary table. Dictionary table. This contains all the field definitions. But there's another table that contains the actual table definition that references this. That's known as the sysdb object table. This is a very important table to get to know. I'll just lay it out for you flat. When you go to tables and columns, this tables is actually showing you a list view of this. And this is actually where the table builder is located. So when you edit up one of those records, it brings you into the table builder. But this table structure is really good to know. And I can't highly recommend more going out and studying it. A lot of people know what the sys dictionary is, but very few know about the sysdb object table. Again, study this. Look at it more. ServiceNow is a career, not a job. So you're going to actually be going in and studying this animal ServiceNow and getting to know what's underneath the hood. By knowing that, you're less likely to be surprised, blindsided by something unusual going on inside ServiceNow. At least you'll know where to go look and begin understanding, what's biting you. I've run into a lot of troubles with table definitions by custom tables and various clients of mine. And so I'll go out and I'll take a look at the table definitions, and they're usually just slapped together to solve a particular problem. Not much real thought given into why they're creating in the table the way they are, what would be the best extensible way to create a table, and so on. Study these, worth it. All right, so let's get off that. And let's talk about a couple of interesting and special things that are available to us inside of the glide record itself. So we can dump all the fields in a glide record. It's pretty straightforward. I'm not going to get 10 records to do this. All I need is one. I'm after the actual definition. Now, oddly enough, I can for each through a glide record. I can't for I equals through it, but I can for each through it. So I can say for var item in incidents, and this is how you for each through the objects in a glide record. Since I'm only getting one, I'm just going to be dumping the one. So gs.info. Now here's where things get very interesting. So I'm actually dumping every field in this object. Now the object name is going to be item, and it automatically defaults to the string when you just pull that itself. And then the second one will be incidents.item or incidents bracket item, which will pull back the information I'm after that's actually inside the field. So the first one's going to be the field name, and the second one will be the actual information in the field. And just like that, this is how you dump a GlideRecord object. So since it's oriented to incident, I'll get incident fields plus whatever system fields. So this actually will reflect what you'll find as far as structure is concerned sitting in a table definition inside the sysdb object. However, there's some interesting little components underneath the hood that come with the glide record that you would not normally see in a table definition. So let's go ahead and save, and I'll show you what I'm talking about. I really wanted to get into some more of this. This is some stuff. We may do a second session picking up where I left off. Lisa, that would be a good follow-on to this. Okay, so there are a bunch of fields here that you won't find in the table definition itself. Some of them you will, and I've got stuff where I've added things to the incident table. But if you go down through this, and we could order this, by the way, I can order the fields themselves. You can see there's a lot of stuff sitting here, and there are strange variables. They're worth going and taking a look at. They aren't in the definition, and you'll notice the stuff isn't named like sys underscore either, just some strange variables sitting in here. It's good to start tracking this stuff down. Notice how little has data in it. I dumped the entire structure. I mean, there is data sitting there, global domain, knowledge, but not much information on this particular record. Notice that fields that are part of this are there. You know, system fields are there. Fields that are part of the incident definition, here's a related field. Remember, this inherits from task as well. So I'm not getting exactly a, just the incident fields. I'm getting the amalgamation of everything inherited. So there's an underlying structure to even the task table itself that's inherited from kind of a global structure. Then there's the task table, and then there's the incident, which inherits from the task. I'm getting all the fields from that in this dump. By the way, this is an extremely useful technique to be able to dump a glide record like this and examine what data is actually being placed into the record on the return. And if you're, this is how you actually look at things to be able to determine if information is being returned as you expect it to be returned. And so this is a granular examination of the information underneath the hood. This is not really the best record. I probably should have done order by descending. Save and grab the last one, which will probably have some real data sitting in it. That first record apparently did not. Let's see if there's anything in here. Doesn't look like it, does it? Yeah, nothing sitting there. So should have found myself a nice record to show off here, but I wanted to move on to some other components of this, but we're at the top of the hour. I'd like to get into one other aspect of this. There is a method called ed, and it's an entity description, and ed is extremely useful. It has a lot of components to it that make it very much useful in the practical aspect. And I'll get into that right now. I'm going to go ahead. It's going to take me about 5 minutes, so bear with me here. But let's go add something in. So ed is not built into the glide record itself. It's built into the glide record utils. So you can do a var and you can call it utils equals and then a new glide record util. This is a actual ServiceNow library that is used by ServiceNow underneath the hood. This is worth going and looking deep into. What's nice about this is it allows you to pull in fields for the glide record and makes it much easier than to iterate through. The nice part about this little thing is that the get fields, which I'm going to show you in a second, actually sets up an array, field array, or an object array that you can get information from. And what's nice about that is you can iterate through it. So let's keep going with this. I'm going to say var incident fields equals utils dot and get fields. And I'm going to feed it incidents. So there's a couple aspects on this. First one is that we're actually bringing back a list, and then we're going to be fiddling with that list. This is the first step to pull back information concerning incidents. The next one that's really cool about this, though, is that it amalgamates their components underneath the hood in GlideRecord that then get tacked onto incidents. So let's look at a couple of things on that. So first off, gs.info and incident fields, and let's print this off. First off, I'm going to comment that out and save, and then we'll run this and it'll show you what we get. This is kind of interesting, or I wouldn't present it. So here's all the fields. It's a list of everything, comma delimited list of every field we were just looking at. So instead of having to iterate through, I can actually go pull individual fields now by using this object that's been created. Another nice thing about it is that also built into the GlideRecord. So now I've got the fields themselves. So I can either do it this way or I can do it this way. I prefer this way. So it's built into the object. And the reasoning behind it is this gives me a list I can iterate through. However, this one right here is actually deep. And I'll show you what I'm talking about. So now we're going to iterate through things. I apologize for going past the top of the hour here. We're going to say, I got to stop this because I run off and do some things here. Var I equals 0. I is less than fields.size. And notice this is not length. It's size. I plus plus. All right, so that's number one. Highly recommend putting this in a try catch because there's some stuff here that's, oh, I got too many vars. Sorry about that. It's got some stuff in it that doesn't play well with GSInfo. So we'll do a try catch around GSInfo. And we can eat the error or print it out. I'm going to print it out. And now we're going to play the game of actually this. Now, whoop, how do we get at the field information itself? You have to break it out as an element. So fields.get I. So it has a getter and a setter. We're only going to be playing with the getter. This is a JavaScript object. And we'll go retrieve the information from it. So this allows us an element which contains its structure and its information. So we're going to say element get name and then element. So this is its value, and this is actually what's contained in it. If it blows up, we'll print off the field and the error, of course. And since it's in a loop, it will go to the next field and the next field and the next field. All right, let's run this and see what happens. So I'm going to comment this out because we don't want it showing up at the beginning. And this will be the last one. Run, proceed. Gee, does this look familiar or what? So this is the alternative method for getting at the information inside of a GlideRecord by peeling away the top and looking at what's in every field. And you can even specify the fields you want to go after. So there you go, a couple of different ways of retrieving the information from a GlideRecord and going after the actual components underneath the hood. I'd like to talk more about this on the Ed object, because the Ed object is huge. It's got a lot of information underneath the hood on this. And there's even Ed methods, and you can actually dump those and take a look at them. Not everything's in the documentation out on Document ServiceNow. So getting at this information can be problematic if you don't know anything about it. I've dissected this on my own and taught myself everything here by looking at ServiceNow's code base and also by digging around on the web and finding examples. There isn't a lot in the way of what's available and what it actually does. It's getting better. If you go out and examine Get Ed on the documentation, you'll find information on it. Now, it didn't used to be. All right, so that's it for today's session. Thank you for attending. If you have any questions, go ahead and post them out, and I will answer them as I can.
Great. Thanks so much. We'll see you on your next one.
Okay.